Hey, welcome to another episode of ENTA Asks, where we hear epic stories from great people about the businesses that you want to work with.
Click below and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Or if you want to be on our show and tell your epic story, our link to get on our show is in the description below.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of ENTA Asks. I'm Adam Colazetti.
And I'm Caitlin Bullock.
And today we have the absolute privilege of hanging out in the offices of the Rocky Cross Group of companies. And we have Lory Perizzolo, who's the COO, and Ryan Thelwell, the Director of Business Development. So thank you so much for having us here today, guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Welcome to our office.
Nice office.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Put a lot of thought into it.
This is like luxury for us. I love it. So just so our audience gets a good sense of it, like sum it up, like Rocky Cross Construction North, what is it that you do?
Rocky Cross Construction North, we're a group of companies providing restoration services from fire, water mitigation to floods to hail damage and anything in between, anything that'll help us help our clients get back on their feet after an unplanned disaster.
So important, especially because it feels like every year we're hearing the hailstorm, there's a flood here, there's a fire here. I mean, it sits in it, the whole community feels it. So what you guys do is so powerful to the community. But we want to start at the stories. We like to dig into the story stuff, okay? Yeah. And I know you guys both have really interesting stories, and we're going to start, Ryan.
Sure, let's do it.
You didn't like grow up dreaming that this was going to be your job. You kind of found it, but first, what did you do?
Yeah, emergency restoration wasn't my initial career path. That's not what I thought. When I was growing up in London, Ontario, I wanted to play in the NBA. That's what I wanted to do.
No way.
Basketball.
I did really well with it. Got to a certain level, but once I hit that level, I learned really quickly that I wasn't tall enough.
You weren't tall enough. I mean,
No.
you're kidding.
Yeah, he's taller than he looks sitting. That's
He's fun to talk.
Yeah.
But it was the truth. Like I went down to New York at the Empire State Games, and we're playing against like teams from inner city New York, and I'm 6'2". Well, in the program I'm 6'3", but I'm telling you guys might.
Yeah.
So it's 6'2", 6'2.5", and I was covering guys that were 6'6" with the same skill.
Yeah.
Right. So I started thinking, okay, well, maybe this might not work. So
disaster recovery.
not there yet. I was almost there. So when I still in high school at the time, I started looking back, and my high school in London, Ontario, had one of the top football teams in the country. As a matter of fact, my last year there, we were the #1 ranked team in the country. So they always asked me to come and play football, and I would tell them, no, I'm a basketball player. So my last year, I decided to give it a shot. Didn't think anything about playing professionally. It was more, my buddies were playing, and they seemed to get all the girls, right? So I figured, heck, why not?
That's how it happens.
And that's what I did.
Professional football.
Well, no, high school. Started playing in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, I remember my high school coach coming up to me and saying, hey, you're pretty good at this. You might be able to get a scholarship. And I'm not going to date myself, but back in those days, it was very rare to see Canadians that went down south to play football. But through it all, I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Minnesota.
Nice.
A football scholarship. So I was down there. Ended up getting drafted. Cool experience. Going from maybe having 200, 300 people at a game to very first game, we had 60,000.
Wow. So which team?
So we played Penn State
Okay.
at the University of Minnesota. Played in front of, we played Michigan one year, there was 107,000 people. Played in front of 97,000 people.
Football very seriously.
It's a completely different mindset.
It's a culture.
And just for reference, the Saddle Dome holds 20,000. So
yeah, I do. Well, I think McMahon holds maybe just under 50, not even, maybe 45, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
Through that, again, it was kind of the same idea. I thought I was just happy to be there, but about halfway through, coaches came up and said, hey, you might be able to play in the NFL. You've got some skill.
Wow.
So in 1998, I ended up getting drafted by the San Francisco 49ers.
Cool. Nice.
spent 98, 99 with the Chargers, and then after that bounced around a few different teams, a few different practice rosters. Being Canadian, I got drafted in 98 into the CFL as well. So BC Lions held my rights. So after I exhausted all my opportunities down south, I decided to come back up to Canada and joined the BC Lions. And I was there, spent 6.5 years, which is an interesting story within itself. And Marco Iannuzzi, if you're watching this, I don't want to hear a peep from you. Like, I know you guys had Marco on your one of your programs. But 6.5 years with the BC Lions, and then 4 years here with the Calgary Stampeders. During that time, I was towards the back half of my career, my thought process was more about life after football. So that's why I chose Calgary. And at the time when oil and gas was booming, and there was lots of opportunities. So I was actually working when I was playing. Wasn't getting paid much, but to me it wasn't so much about the money. It was about learning and getting my foot in the door and just meeting new people. It quickly changed when I retired, and my wife and I at the time, we had 3 kids, and you got to feed, you got people to feed, and.
So how old were you when you retired?
I was 36. I played quite a while. I was pretty lucky. The most careers don't last that long. I think
because you're a receiver and you were trying not to get hit.
Which is good. That shows I didn't get hit. I lasted a long time.
Gotcha.
I was about 35, 36 when I retired.
So that's okay. I want to talk about that because I think in sports, I don't know if the general public really understands that transition is super hard.
It is.
Because you're literally starting a whole new career. It's like at a time where people are really getting established in their career, you're starting from scratch.
It's funny. I remember having a conversation with my wife the day of my retirement, and she said that was the best day of her life, right? Just because now it's going to be able to focus on career, the longevity, the injuries aren't there. But you're right. I played football for over 20 years.
Right.
Yeah, you start straight from high school.
From high school all the way through, and it's such a structured sport. Like, we're told where to be, what to eat. As silly as it sounds, like what to eat, when to work out. Like everything's scheduled for us.
Yeah.
So to make that transition, it was probably one of the hardest things I had to do. Right. I was used to having a locker room full of brothers. That's how it's looked at. It's a brotherhood, and now that you're out, you're not in that circle, and it was tough. It was tough getting used to not playing.
And then on top of that, like, everybody's like, oh, sports guys, we're gonna talk about money. I hope you're not embarrassed about it, but like, they make money, they make good money, right?
Yep.
And then now you're coming out and you're starting in a career where you're actually at a starting position.
Yes.
But it's not like when you're going through playing football, you're thinking, I'm gonna save and be fiscally responsible to do all this stuff. You're 20 years old, right? So you live within your means, and then all of a sudden you have this huge transition. So now you've got a small family, like a young family, right? And then on top of that, you're starting over when people are established, and then you've lost this brother. That is a huge transformation to go through as a person.
It's probably one of the toughest things and I've done a lot. Probably one of the toughest things that's happened throughout my life. But you know what? It was a learning experience. I loved it, right? Like, I think one of the things that, looking back, like, one of the things I was always good at, like, I love meeting people, right? So for me, it wasn't that hard. I met a lot of people pretty quickly after I left the game. So once I had that transition, again, I missed the guys, but I didn't miss football, right? Like, I look at this, like, this is my new team. This is my new coach.
Your new brotherhood.
Right? And that's honestly how we see it. That's how Lory runs this office.
And you can see it, right? I mean, you guys can't look around, but there's sports memorabilia everywhere.
Yeah.
Hockey. Mostly
Yes.
hockey. Yeah.
We're working on the football stuff. That's a work in progress.
So yes, and your football memorabilia too.
Yeah. Okay, so you've met a lot of people. You're starting to get into this new career, and then when did the disaster recovery come into the?
So one of the things there was quite a few jobs within that the first couple of years. Not quite a few, but a few opportunities that I looked at, and one of the jobs that I that I took on was with a company called Proterra. So a company out of Kitchener that sold LED lighting to property management companies.
Okay.
And so they asked me if I'd be interested in coming on board because they had nobody out west. And when I was playing ball, I made a point to get to as many events, get myself out there, charity events, whatever events, like local events that the Stamps were doing, because I got to meet, it introduces you to a lot of people. And so I got an opportunity to meet a lot of property managers. So I had the contacts, now it was just, introducing this product, right? So, did that for a little bit. Things just didn't work out. They ran into some issues, headquartered out of Kitchener. So when the opportunity came up, and it actually came up, I was headhunted on LinkedIn for one of our competition.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much about my experience in the industry. They saw that I was working with property managers.
Right. It's who you know.
Yeah.
Not what you know.
Exactly. Right. And that's how I looked at it. You know what? The product is a product. Like once I know the product, that's the easy part, right? I'm still selling to the same people.
Right.
Again, it's just a different product, right? So once that opportunity came along, the wife was happy because the pay was a little bit better and it was more stable.
Yeah.
Right. And I got on right after the flood in 2013, so I was kind of thrown right into the fire and learned a lot through it. But it caught me just because, again, like one of the first opportunities I had was to actually go out to High River to look at one of our clients' properties that had been damaged in this flood.
Yeah.
And I got to meet the owner and got to hear his story, and it really, I knew it was something that I would enjoy doing because I knew we were helping people in their time of need, right? So right away, I fell in love with it. Again, I love meeting people, and this job allows me to do it, and it just kind of went from there, right? So
that's cool. Do you find, you had just gone through this journey of years prior where you really had to be resilient, right? As you went through a transition from sports to the outside professional world, right?
Yes.
And then you meet people when they're, they've had a pretty tough day, right? If they're dealing in disaster, right? Something's flooded, something's burned down. Do you find you can relate in terms of resilience a little bit? Like, because, they're kind of going through a tough.
Yeah, right. It's the thing about football, especially professional football, is like you're always under the microscope, and there's always that stress, there's always that pressure. Like you're constantly being judged. That's your job, right? You're being judged by your coach. You're criticized in the media, and you've got that. And with what we do, we're meeting people usually at the lowest point within a certain situation, right?
Yeah.
Their house is flooded, their house is burned out. There's a lot of stress, right? So I've dealt with stress, and so it helps me relate and understand where they're coming from.
Right.
And again, like we know, like in the end, like our goal is to make their life better, right? From disaster to done, right? When they need us most, to make it as easy as possible. So it's tough. It is tough, but we see the transition from start to finish, and when it's done, we know that we're gonna have smiles on our face, and the situation will get better, right? So
it's just such an amazing thing for you to be able to see the impact you're having directly, right? Like a lot of companies, they're so removed from their clients, right? Like, they fill out a feedback form, right? But you get to see, them go from a place of very utter frustration and sorrow to I'm back, right? What an impact. So is this it? This is for your career. You're here. Like, this is it. You're bought in.
I love it. Like, again, we're dealing with people. We're helping people.
What more could you ask for?
And the beautiful thing, and I should say it's beautiful, but in this world, this line of business, it's something new every day.
Yeah.
Right? It is.
Well, you never know what you're walking into.
You never know what you're walking into. And you get to meet interesting people. And again, you're getting them at a vulnerable time. So to know that we're going to be impacting their lives, to me, it's an amazing feeling, right? So I love it.
That's awesome.
And did you know Lory when you came on board? Did you guys meet later?
So Lory, and then Lory's gonna get into his story, but Lory used to be on the other side. Like Lory used to work on the insurance side.
Right.
So Lory'd be one of those guys where we would be knocking on his door and God, so tough to get in front now. Why does this guy keep bothering me? But yeah, we got to know Lory when from Lory's time when he was on the insurance side, and he was the opposite. He was very, very easy to deal with. Very, very, what would be the word? Engage. These guys, when Lory was on, like, just being on the other side, they get guys like us knocking on their door all the time.
Right.
And so a lot of times, you got to be persistent. You get a lot of doors that will close in your face, but Lory would always take that time and getting to know Lory. And like, he's going to get in more details on his journey, but he came on board with DKI Canada,
Right.
at a senior role. So we didn't see him on a daily basis, but at all the national events, Lory would be there.
Right.
So I got to know him, spend a little bit more time with him there. So when we found out that Lory was going to be coming on board, like for us, it was an easy transition for me, because I already knew what we were getting. I knew what he was all about, and he's been amazing for this company. I know you can just pay me the $20.
That's later.
Well, I'm super excited because in our next episode, we're going to get into Lory's story and kind of having that insurance background. You kind of bring that edge up or that superpower to Rocky Cross, right? So
yeah, he's been on both sides. He's
yeah.
the best of both worlds,
Different
right?
view,
So
right?
it's definitely a bonus
absolutely.
for us.
We've all had experience dealing with insurance companies. So some more recently than others. That's over here. That's my bad. But we're really excited to get into that. I have one last question.
Yes.
Switching from NFL to CFL,
Yes.
we have, if I remember my country songs right, we have bigger balls, longer, one more yard, like longer field,
Yeah.
and what is it, one more down?
Wider.
So,
Wider field,
so you're
wider
close.
field.
So yeah, fields wider
Okay.
and longer.
Yep.
The balls are bigger. So the CFL derived from rugby,
Okay.
right? So the ball is bigger. So if you look at the Grey Cup, it actually says like Canadian Rugby Championship.
Really?
Right, over 100 years old. It's one of the
I know
oldest,
that.
one of the oldest trophies
Okay.
in professional sports.
Yeah.
We have one less down,
One less
We
down
do?
was right. And one less down.
which is good for us receivers because there's more
Right.
throwing than running. And you know what? It's an exciting game. Like I get asked that question all the time. Like,
Was there a different,
oh, you must have loved the NFL. And I was like, yeah, I did enjoy my time in the NFL, but it's such a fan-driven sport, right? We don't got the TV dollars like the NFL does.
yeah,
And so again, we get to interact with people and
you're more connected.
yeah, go to the Grey Cup. It's a party,
Yeah.
right? The players are accessible, the fans are great. So growing up in Canada, this is my game, right? I love it.
Amazing.
And we have stronger beer. Which
Oh,
is-
100%.
Which is the song I was referring to. Because we know I don't know sports, so that is amazing. I had to ask that. I was curious. When people want to get hold of you, and so mostly the people that do get a hold of you are property managers, insurance companies you work directly with, even though you're impacting the community, that's your end user, right? These are the guys that are working with you guys. How do they get a hold of you to say, you know what, those are the two we want to work with?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. We're obviously, besides social media, we're on. We have our website www.rccn.ca, or by email claims@rccn.ca, or by phone 403-252-2550.
Perfect. And we'll put all that information below so you guys can click. These two gentlemen are just amazing, and we're going to get into Lory's story in next episode. So check it out. Oh, can I get a mic drop?
That was so
Epic. Join us next time on ENTA Asks.